As a kid, I lost countless hours to the Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi series, and I'm sure many of you did too. It practically became the primary way I absorbed some of Akira Toriyama's greatest works. So like many others, I was really stoked to see Dragon Ball Sparking Zero announced at last year's Game Awards. I got to play 30 minutes of the Versus Battle mode at Summer Game Fest, fighting against the computer in some high-octane, action-packed, environment-destroying fights. In many ways, it looks and feels like the old Budokai Tenkaichi games with updated graphics and more blue-haired Saiyans, but I'm here for it. Sparking Zero feels like something truly special in the Dragon Ball fandom. It checks all the boxes that my 12-year-old self has wanted in a Dragon Ball game for the past 15 years, but it also feels like a celebration of one of anime's most legendary shows. Fighting in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is pretty approachable, as any fan could pick this up and play it, hit a few buttons, and do some pretty cool things. You've got light attacks and heavy attack buttons, and the heavy attack has alternate effects depending on when you press it in the combo. I'm sure if you've played the old Budokai Tenkaichi games, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is another fantastic game in the Dragon Ball franchise, really nails that frantic yet measured feeling of close quarters combat. Sparking Zero, on the other hand, has some of those moments, but it's more about sending your enemy flying and following up with rushes and teleportations. It's that big bombastic scale of knowing anywhere is possible and there are no limits to where you can take this battle. It effectively captures that too fast for the eyes action that the series is known for. Additionally, sending enemies flying through the air is a great way to showcase just how destructive these battles are. Like, there's a reason they need to keep using the Dragon Balls to wish everything back to the way it was, right? Buildings and rock formations crumble, and it doesn't take long for the field to become a series of endless craters. For defensive options, you can block, perfect block, vanish, dash out of the way, and it's hard to make defense feel as good as offense in general in a lot of action games, but there's something about just vanishing behind an enemy and sending them flying that feels so perfectly like Dragon Ball. It's nothing personal, it's just fun. Of course, we're all here for the big attacks, your Kamehamehas, your Gallic guns, your Masenkos, right? Executing these attacks is easy. You just hold down the charge button and you press one of the corresponding face buttons or a direction for some of them. Again, just like the old Tenkaichi games.
You've taken this far enough!
These special attacks are probably the cream of the crop in Sparking Zero. They harken back to the show and the movies that made Goku famous, while hitting on that nostalgia and the hype that Dragon Ball is really known for. Versus battles weren't the only thing we saw at Summer Game Fest. We also got to see a hands-off presentation of an episode battle and the custom battle modes. And as a Dragon Ball fan of more than 2 decades, I firmly believe that custom battles may be the most brilliant thing to hit the franchise since Dragon Ball Super Broly, maybe. To this day, people still argue and discuss imaginary matchups in and beyond Dragon Ball. Just Google Goku versus Superman and you'll know what I mean. And I get it. There's an eternal joy in imagining these hyperdynamic, hypothetical fistfights, and there are so many YouTube rabbit holes about all sorts of weird, what if Goku didn't lose his memories when he landed on Earth kind of stuff. So there's a lot of hubbub out there for people who love to imagine alternate universe Dragon Ball things. And custom battles finally are giving these fans an outlet to explore all their wildest dreams. Through a simple menu, you can create custom cutscenes with dialogue and motion, and then attach them to battles with specific win conditions. I'm telling you that you could have Beerus and Mr. Satan fight each other, and they could have a stare down of epic proportions because they've always meant to fight each other because Mr. Satan is secretly the strongest fighter in the universe. Of course, obviously, right? And even better, these custom battles can be shared online, making it a really social, creative endeavor. It's the video game equivalent of smashing action figures together, except you don't even need to invite people to your home. You could just send them a link or whatever it will be in the game to say, hey, could you imagine what if Yamcha really was the strongest person in the universe and he was the one who defeated Majin Buu, right? That's pretty cool, and I think a lot of Dragon Ball fans will have a lot to look forward to with the custom battle modes. Episode battles are more of a known quantity and probably what you are expecting the most when it comes to story mode in this kind of game. There are 8 characters that you can follow and they will retell the story from their perspective. with Goku's story, of course, spanning from Dragon Ball Z up through Super, which just makes sense, right? We weren't told who the 7 other characters would be, but I mean, I'd bet money that at least Vegeta is one of them, right? We were walked through Goku's first episode, the one where, as you probably would expect, he and Piccolo fight Raditz. So it starts off with Goku fighting Raditz and losing at some point because Raditz usually wins that fight, and then Piccolo shows up and offers to help. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting, right? Because they offer you a dialogue option where Goku can say, actually, I can do this on my own, thanks. Or you can take Piccolo's help, the canonic route. So already there, Bandai Namco is exploring some kind of differences in the canon. We weren't allowed to see to what extent these things would change, how much of an impact it would have down the line in the future, considering Piccolo's a pretty important character in the canon. But the fact that they exist at least makes this an interesting retelling for people who've seen Goku beat Frieza 20 times already, right? Like, there could be more to see here, more interesting things, more unique things that might change the way you see Dragon Ball. Even better, certain scenes will come with a literal new perspective. For example, we saw the moment where Goku has Raditz in the full Nelson and, Piccolo blows a hole through both of them. You probably know about this scene. You can hit a button to toggle the point of view and see that scene from Goku's perspective. Like, the laser beam comes at you and everything. It's pretty, in a weird way, very funny. And they confirmed that point of view idea will come back in future scenes. We weren't told which ones, but all I'm saying is, could you imagine being Frieza while a spirit bomb envelops you completely and swallows you entirely? That would be kind of cool to see. All I know is, if you're like me, where you thought Budokai Tenkaichi was the peak of Dragon Ball gaming, Sparking Zero should 1000% be on your Dragon radar. I'm sure it already is, but I'm here to confirm to you, yeah, it's so far living up to my expectations as someone who's spent dozens, hundreds of hours on those games as a kid. So I'm going to be keeping an eye out for it when it comes out on October 11, which also happens to be the same day that Metaphor ReFantazio is coming out, that Persona-like game. We have a preview of that. I've got a link up on the screen here that you can check it out on. And if you want more from TechRaptor, we're still putting out our Summer Game Fest coverage and also just more news, reviews, etc. at techraptor.net or here on our YouTube channel. So hit subscribe if you haven't already. It'd help us out a lot. Thanks for watching.
I can feel it. Keep it coming, guys. Share your power with me. I want to show you how much I've grown. Would you spar with me?